This is a presentation on the bubonic plague, the most common form of plague in humans. The bubonic plague is a bacterial disease caused by Yersinia pestis. It is also known as the Black Death. It primarily affects wild rodents, but also humans, cats, rabbits, squirrels, and prairie dogs. The bubonic plague requires a reservoir, which is a mammal, and a vector, which is an invertebrate. It is one of the three forms of the plague. The bubonic plague is characterized by an infection of the lymph nodes. The pneumonic plague is characterized by an infection of the lungs, and the septicemic plague is characterized by an infection of the blood. The bacterial infection enters throughout the skin and travels through the lymphatics. This results in swollen lymph nodes occurring in the armpits, groin, and neck. These are known as buboes. When left untreated, the bacteria will invade the bloodstream, spreading rapidly throughout the body. This results in the septicemic plague. It can also progress into the lungs, resulting in the pneumonic plague. All forms can rapidly lead to death. There have been three major outbreaks of the plague throughout history. The Justinian plague was the first recorded pandemic. It began in 541 AD and lasted approximately 200 years. It spread from the Middle East to the Mediterranean and caused over 100 million deaths. The second major outbreak of the plague, and the most well known, is the Great Plague. It originated in China in 1334, spreading along the trade routes to Istanbul in Europe. The Great Plague killed approximately 60% of the European population. The third major outbreak of the plague was the modern plague. This originated in China in the 1860s and lasted approximately 20 years. The modern plague caused approximately 10 million deaths. The plague was introduced into the United States in 1890. This was through rat-infested steamships that sailed from the affected areas in Asia. Epidemics occurred in port cities such as New York, San Francisco, and Port Townsend, and then quickly spread throughout the United States. The plague has caused millions of deaths in the past centuries and continues to be a concern today. Bubonic plague has been identified by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, as a Category A organism. Given the presence and availability of the plague around the world, the capacity for mass production and aerosol dissemination, the high fatality rate, and the potential for rapid secondary spread, the potential use of the plague as a biological weapon is a large concern. The causative agent of the bubonic plague is Yersinia pestis. It is a gram-negative rod ovoid, which is 0.5 to 0.8 micrometers in width and 1 to 3 micrometers in length. It is a non-motile bacteria. It was discovered to be the causative agent of the plague in 1894 by a Swiss-French physician and bacteriologist, Alexander Yersin. Plague epidemics have occurred worldwide, but most human cases since the 1990s have occurred in Africa. Between 1,000 to 2,000 cases each year are reported by the World Health Organization. There are still some cases in the United States, Peru, China, India, and Malaysia every year. The bubonic plague is common in unhygienic conditions. This is because it attracts the wild rodents, which acts as a reservoir for this disease. The bubonic form of bacteria can be transmitted to humans in two different ways. The first way is being bitten by an infected flea. This is the most common form of transmission. The second way is to be in contact with contaminated fluid or tissue. This can be done by handling tissue or body fluids of a plague-infected animal, through sexual contact with an infected individual, or through contaminated food or water, through fecal-oral transmission. Animals can also be infected by eating other infected rodents. In some rare cases, humans have been infected through bites or scratches from these infected animals, such as cats. The vector for the bubonic plague is the oriental rat flea, Xenopsilla chiopsis. It is found worldwide, but rarely in cold climates. It is distinct from other fleas as it has a very large egg. The oriental rat flea has an approximate lifespan of 2 to 3 months, but the maximum lifespan is 376 days. Both the female and male sex feed on blood. The oriental rat flea prefers to feed on rats, but if hungry, it will feed on any other mammal. As you can see, all three forms of the plague are intertwined. The bubonic plague can easily result into the pneumonic plague or the septicemic plague. The pneumonic plague can then transfer from person to person very easily through droplets in the air. The bubonic plague is transmitted via an infected flea, which is the most common form of transmission, or through a bite of a domestic or wild rodent, which is less common. After 2 to 6 days, infected individuals will start to have the symptoms of a fever, headache, chills, nausea, weakness, and painful buboes, which are the swollen lymph nodes. If left untreated, this will cause delirium, chest pain, cough with bloody discharge, gangrene in the extremities such as the toes, fingers, lips, and nose, and eventually death. Bubonic plague is a possible diagnosis for people who live or travel to underdeveloped countries such as Africa and areas of South America. If there is a visible flea bite or presence of a bubo, a culture of the lymph node aspirate, which is the fluid taken from an infected lymph node, will be tested for the presence of Yersinia pestis. Once confirmed of Yersinia pestis present, several classes of antibiotics are effective, such as tripomycin and gentamicin, or any of the tetracyclines. These antibiotics should be given within the first 24 hours to prevent death. The mortality associated with the treated cases of the bubonic plague is 1 to 15%, compared to 40 to 60% in untreated cases. The key to controlling the bubonic plague is through prevention. Here are things that you can do as an individual. Reduce rodent habitats around the home, workplace, and recreational areas by removing brush, rock piles, junk, cluttered firewood, and possible rodent food supplies, such as pet and wild animal food. Wear gloves if you are handling or skinning potentially infected animals. This prevents direct skin-to-skin contact. Also become informed on proper disposal procedures. Use repellent if you could be exposed to rodent fleas during activities such as camping, hiking, and working outdoors. Keep fleas off your pets by applying flea control products. Also make sure to check your pets regularly after any outdoor activity. Do not allow dogs or cats that roam free to sleep in your bed. There are currently no vaccines to prevent the plague, but they are in development and expected to be commercially available in the immediate future. For more information on the history, distribution, symptoms, diagnosis, treatment, or prevention and control, visit the CDC website or the World Health Organization website.